in this process. The solution of the problems coming into this country illegally. We have let rhetoric and political advantage cloud this sound judgment. Mr. Chairman,
you can see all of this hearing in our overnight programming here on C-SPAN, and the Supreme Court's oral argument on the Arizona immigration law on Friday night at 8 Eastern on C-SPAN. The House is coming in now for a vote on a measure debated earlier today.
To facilitate a land exchange involving certain National Forest System lands in the Inyo National Forest and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
One vote this evening dealing with the land exchange in the Inyo National Forest, which is located in California's eastern Sierra. C-SPAN's Road to the White House political coverage of the Republican presidential primaries continues, with contests in Connecticut, Delaware, New York, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. A total of 231 delegates are at stake in those 5 states today. We're expecting to have live remarks from presidential candidates Newt Gingrich at about 8 Eastern and Mitt Romney from where he's campaigning in Manchester, New Hampshire, later on in the evening. As this vote continues, still to come this week in the House, a possible motion on dealing with the highway bill and several cybersecurity bills. We spoke with a reporter for more. David Lightman, national correspondent from McClatchy Newspapers. Congress is working on a handful of issues as they head towards another one-week break. What are you specifically following?
Postal Service bill. This actually is an important bill and one that has a lot of resonance out in the heartland. This is a bill a Senate bill, a bipartisan bill, that would delay the end of Saturday service for at least 2 years, and it would make it more difficult for the Postal Service to close thousands of post offices around the country and hundreds of processing centers.
You mentioned resonance in the heartland. Why is this bill a priority for many lawmakers?
Well, particularly in small towns, rural areas, post offices are the center of community life. They're beloved institutions. In addition, there's a practical reason they want these post offices retained, and that is you go out to small, remote places, they don't have internet access, they can't get email. The post office is very much their lifeline. It's how seniors get their medicines. It's how people get their newspapers, those who still read newspapers.
What kind of opposition is the bill facing?
Well, there are a lot of people who think the post office should be run more like a business and should be subject to the same principles as a business would be. And, of course, the Postal Service has been losing customers and losing money, and a lot of people in Congress want tighter controls, tighter restrictions. They want a little more scrutiny of how things work.
When do you think the Senate might complete work on the post office bill, and what are its prospects in the House?
They're plowing through amendments as we speak, and if they don't finish this Wednesday night, and I don't think they will, Tuesday night, and I don't think they will, they'll probably finish sometime Wednesday. The House is a little different. The top Republicans there have a different proposal that would set up a commission that would in effect recommend what to close, what to consolidate, and Saturday service would be terminated in 6 months under certain conditions, not 2 years.
Moving to another issue, transportation, the Senate today named its representatives for the House-Senate Conference Committee on the Surface Transportation Bill. When are negotiators expected to get to work on that?
Pretty soon. They're facing a June 30 deadline for the money or the authority to run out. The House wants a 90-day extension, the Senate 2 years. The key focus there is going to be not just on money for highways, but the Keystone Pipeline. This, of course, is the pipeline that would go from Canada into the United States. It's been delayed. The House provision would have it built. The Senate has not spoken on this in the highway bill yet. That's going to be a big, big point of contention.
So you mentioned the possible Keystone XL pipeline portion in there. Why has there been a back and forth about the length of time? 2 years, 5 years?
Yeah, the Senate has a longer-term plan. I believe is $109 billion. The House 90 days. The House is they're all concerned about how do you pay for this? Is there enough money? Is there too much money being transferred from general funds into the highway and transportation funds? The problem is, first of all, political. I mean, you don't want to shut down highway construction, particularly in an election year. But it's also practical. The highway bill used to be the one bipartisan measure that would get approved, be approved for in 5-6 year stretches. All of a sudden, it's been extended in piecemeal fashion now 8, 9, 10 times. I don't recall the exact number.
Thanks a lot, David Lightman, a national correspondent for McClatchy Newspapers.
Pleasure. Thank you.
In the interview, we mentioned that the Senate today appointed 14 negotiators to work out the differences between the House and Senate on the surface transportation bill. Congressional Quarterly writes that House Speaker John Boehner is expected to name his team of negotiators tomorrow, according to a Republican aide. And that House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer said today that Democrats are likely to force a vote on the Senate's 2-year, $109 billion highway bill. Republican House leaders would like to vote on a 5-year transportation measure, but have not had the votes to move forward. This is the only vote of the day in the House. Earlier today, President Obama was at the University of North Carolina, where he launched an effort to get Congress to prevent interest rates on student loans from increasing. According to the White House, more than 7.4 million students with federal loans will see interest rates double on July 1st without congressional action. The president also travels to the University of Colorado at Boulder today and the University of Iowa tomorrow to speak to students about the student loan rates. You can see the president after the House is out tonight here on C-SPAN. In addition to the House and the Senate, we'll have live coverage tomorrow of Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee on her department's operations. That hearing gets underway at 9:30 a.m. Eastern with live coverage on C-SPAN 3. Primary voting continues today in Connecticut, Delaware, New York, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. We'll have live remarks from Republican presidential candidates Newt Gingrich at about 8 Eastern and Mitt Romney from where he's campaigning in Manchester, New Hampshire, later this evening on C-SPAN 2.
Two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oregon seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that when the House adjourns today, that it adjourn to meet at 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate and 1 p.m. for legislative business.
Without objection, so ordered. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members be allowed to revise and extend their remarks and insert extraneous materials on the subject of my 1 minute regarding Pastor Joel Osteen and co-pastor Victoria Osteen of the Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas.
Without objection, so ordered.
Okay.
The chair will now entertain 1 minute request. Purposes, the gentleman from Arkansas seek recognition. Without objection. Out of order. Please take your conferences off the floor. The gentleman will proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to honor the 100th anniversary of Arkansas County Bank. The bank is a fourth-generation family-owned business. It serves Arkansas County and the Grand Prairie as a national and state-chartered institution. Arkansas County Bank began with humble origins. At the end of their first year of business in 1912, the bank had just over $64,000 in total deposits. By 1919, Arkansas County Bank had its first $1 million in deposits and has seen steady growth ever since. By 1985, Arkansas County Bank had expanded into Sevier County after purchasing the Bank of Locksburg. Today, they also have a branch that serves the Stuttgart community. Giving back is important to Arkansas County Bank. Bank employees regularly volunteer over 1,000 hours annually to charities and service organizations throughout the Grand Prairie of Arkansas. As Arkansas County Bank celebrates 100 years of business, they're building on the past by looking to the future. With a record of service, Arkansas County Bank is dedicated to beginning a second century of community investment. Congratulations again to the leadership and employees and the family of Arkansas County Bank on 100 years of business. Yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, when lawless drug dealers, child molesters, wife beaters, robbers, bandits, and other street terrorists threaten our communities, peace officers are always the first ones to track them down. Peace officers are the last strand of wire in the fence between good and evil. These men and women put themselves in danger every day in order to protect us and our families. Some put on the uniform and badge and do not return home after their shift. There had been an alarming 75% increase in police officer deaths since 2008. 2011 was the first time more officers died at the hands of street thugs than in car crashes. In many instances, the killers were repeat offenders who shouldn't have been roaming the streets in the first place. As we approach Peace Officers Memorial Day in May, we have to support these and those that protect the home front. They are what separate us from the outlaws and the anarchy of the lawless. And that's just the way it is. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose is the gentleman from Minnesota?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revising consent.
Without objection.
Well, Mr. Speaker, more and more American consumers are discovering a provision in the President's new health care law that prevents them from buying simple over-the-counter medications using their health care savings accounts or their flexible spending accounts unless they first get a doctor's prescription. So instead of walking into their local drugstore to use their HSA or their FSA, Americans are now forced to visit a doctor, pay a standard copay, before finally receiving a prescription to buy medicines like Advil or Claritin. Does this sound burdensome? That's because it absolutely is. Mr. Speaker, millions of Americans use HSAs and FSAs for their flexibility and their portability, yet this new health care law is now taking that away and is wreaking havoc on patients and also increasing burdens on physicians. We need to repeal this onerous provision, and that's why I've introduced legislation that does exactly that with bipartisan support. Mr. Speaker, this week the House Ways and Means Committee will hold a hearing on the use of HSAs and FSAs on over-the-counter medicine practices, and I hope we'll all agree that individuals, families, patients, and doctors make the best decisions for their health care needs, not the government. It's time to do away with this onerous prescription requirement. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Michigan seek recognition?
I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to express my support for the extension of the current student loan interest rates. Every young American who works hard and studies hard deserves a shot at the American dream. Unfortunately, the economy led by President Barack Obama is denying them the opportunities that they need. Actually, according to an Associated Press analysis, over 53% of young college graduates aged 25 or under, which is 1.5 million young Americans, are unemployed or they hold low-wage jobs that don't require them to use the degree that they just obtained. Our approach to help young people is about more than just the interest rate that they pay on their loans. It's about creating an economy that gives them the chance to apply the knowledge that they work so hard to learn. And that means not raising taxes or imposing new regulations on the very job creators that will offer opportunities to our young people. It means opening up energy reserves to lower prices at the pump, because guess what, Mr. Speaker, young people also are paying these high gas prices as well. Let's stop the rise in student loan interest rates, but at the same time, let's get this economy moving so that America's young people can achieve their dreams. I yield back.
Are there any further 1-minute requests? If not, the Chair lays before the House the following personal requests.
Leave of absence requested for Mr. Griffin of Arkansas for today, Mr. Marino of Pennsylvania for today, and for the balance of the week, Mr. Schiff of California for today.
Without objection, the requests are granted. For the Speaker's announced policy of January 5, 2011, the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Courtney, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Minority Leader.
That's perfect. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we're here today, Tuesday, April 24th, to talk about an issue which, again, middle-class families all across America are watching very closely. As the chart next to me indicates, in 67 days, the interest rates on the Stafford Student Loan Program, a loan program which serves over 7 million college students all across America, is slated to increase its interest rate from 3.4% to 6.8%. This program, which over time today has served roughly about 35 to 40 million Americans, is a critical component for middle-class families to provide affordable higher education, which today in the 21st century is almost as important as having a high school education. The Stafford Student Loan Program's interest rate was cut in 2007 as a result of passage of the College Cost Reduction Act, a measure which cut the rate from 6.8% down to 3.4%. Unlike this Congress, it was a bipartisan effort. 77 House Republicans voted for that measure. 35 Republican senators voted for that measure. George W. Bush signed it into law, President Bush to his credit, and it provided, again, great relief for students all across America for an issue which we now know from the Federal Reserve Bank threatens really the financial solvency of America's middle class. College student loan debt today now exceeds credit card debt, it exceeds car loan debt, and one of the few safe harbors that exists in the system for students is, in fact, the Stafford Student Loan Program. It has great bipartisan genealogy and sources. Stafford was actually a senator, Robert Stafford, from Vermont, a Republican, who, again, believed in education and was somebody who understood that the cost of college and university education is not what it used to be, and that we had to give, again, middle-class families better tools to pay for it. Anyone who's dealt with the private student loan market knows that the rates today are roughly about 9 to 10%. Interest accumulates from the day the loan is taken out. So if you're a freshman in a four-year university, you accumulate interest for the entire time that you're in college using those loans. There is no forbearance. There's no time frame in terms of repayment. And again, it is non-dischargeable in bankruptcy if a person gets into great financial difficulty. The Stafford Student Loan Program, in contrast, has affordable rates, 3.4%. There is a forbearance period after a student graduates of 6 months before payments commence, and no interest accumulates during the time that the student is actually in college. If there is financial problems that occur, again, there's systems for deferring payments, and in fact, there is an income-based repayment formula so that no more than 10% of your income can be devoted to repayment of Stafford student loans. So this is really, again, a measure which affects a broad swath of America in terms of millions of students, millions of families. It is really about the only avenue that young people facing the formidable challenge, almost like buying a house when you go to college, and yet we stand here today 67 days away from having these rates increase. Now, for those who have been watching this issue, President Obama, right from that podium at the State of the Union address, challenged this Congress back in January to address this issue, to avoid a doubling of interest rates. And to date, the majority party in this House, the Republican majority, has not taken up a single bill, even though we hear some nice words on the other side. There is no measure that they have come forward. The chairman of the Education Committee last week was quoted in the New York Times saying that protecting this rate at 3.4% was bad policy. And we have the words of the chairwoman, which are upside down right now. Let me just fix that in a second. The chairwoman of the House Education Subcommittee from North Carolina, who stated on a radio program a couple weeks ago, "I have very little tolerance for people who tell me that they graduate with $200,000 of debt or even $80,000 of debt because there's no reason for that." Well, I would challenge that member to talk to a new dentist or a new dental student graduating, or a nurse anesthetist who was in my office the other day who was carrying over $80,000 in debt. The fact of the matter is, in terms of trying to get, again, skills for the modern American workforce, that is a reality that students and families confront day in and day out. Yet the leadership of the majority of this Congress is basically turning its back on the bipartisan tradition of the Stafford Student Loan Program, with its really pioneering member of the Senate, Robert Stafford, with the bipartisan support for the College Cost Reduction Act, passed with strong bipartisan votes and signed into law by a Republican president, George Bush, and basically saying it's bad policy and we're not going to do it. Well, since last week, and again, we did one of these special order one-hour sessions with the countdown clock, some things are starting to change. Yesterday, the Republican front-runner effective nominee for president, Mitt Romney, during the middle of a press conference, finished up, turned around, was walking away, and turned on his heel and came back and said, "Oh, by the way, I want to say that I support President Obama's proposal to block the increase in interest rates at 3.4%. This is the leader of the Republican Party nationally. So there does seem to be some hope. Now, it may be connected to the fact that the President was yesterday at the University of North Carolina talking to young people in this country who know exactly what he is talking about in terms of higher education costs and the need to protect affordable loan programs to pay for college. And that tonight he will be, later tonight he is going to be at the University of Colorado talking to students at Colorado about exactly the same issue, and tomorrow he's going to be at Iowa State University. So there's clearly a bit of politics that's swirling around here, because if you look at Mr. Romney's comments on this issue over the last few months or so, he has in fact said exactly the opposite. Indeed, he has come out in support of the Ryan budget, the Republican budget resolution which was passed in this chamber a few weeks ago, and in that budget resolution, that 6.8% rate increase is locked in under the Ryan budget plan. And not only does it lock in the highest cost of the Stafford Student Loan Program, it cuts the Pell Grant program. That's the other workhorse of college affordability in this country, named after Senator Claiborne Pell of Rhode Island. Again, a grant program that helps the most needy students pay for college. It's up to $6,000, hardly enough to fully pay for most colleges in this country, but nonetheless is essential for college students across this country. The Ryan budget cuts the grant level for the Pell program down to $5,000. Unbelievable at a time when we're seeing college student loan debt skyrocket in this country, and sadly at a time when America's graduation rates, which was #1 in the 1980s, has now fallen to #12. That, Frank, for the folks who are listening here today, that is a trend of mediocrity for this country. That is not a trend of growth. That is not a trend of innovation for the future. That is a trend which basically says we are basically going to surrender to the forces of mediocrity in this country, and that is not acceptable to this country, and it's certainly not acceptable to all of us as Americans. And it resonates all across America. Again, I come from the Northeast up in Connecticut. We're joined here today by a great Congresswoman from the state of Texas, Sheila Jackson Lee, and I'd like to yield to Congresswoman Lee to talk about your perspective from the great state of Texas.
Well, I want to thank the gentleman from Connecticut for untiring and unceasing in his work and the reach that he has made to this issue, to really touch the hearts and minds of those who believe that education is opportunity, and it is something that we need to plant the seeds for those who are now following forward for their destiny. I'm delighted to be on the floor as well with another leader in education, the Honorable Danny Davis, and I will just say to you that I took the oath. And this whole 4 days when I was in my district, everywhere I went, I touched the hearts of young and old when I reported to them that while their children are struggling, working hard, trying to get good grades in higher education, and when they in good faith took out loans of about 2.8% just a few years back, somewhere between that and 3.4, and now within days this is going to double, and that we are here fighting in Washington to ensure that the doors of opportunity are not closed. So I think it is very important. You are absolutely right to take note that the potential or soon-to-be Republican nominee for president has recognized the foolishness, unfortunately, of stalling in this House, that we have not simply passed a bipartisan effort, your legislation that I am a co-sponsor of, that simply indicates that we will not see the doubling of those interest rates. I have universities, if I don't call them all, from University of Houston to Texas Southern University, Rice University, Houston Community College, Lone Star College, Houston Baptist, St. Thomas, in and around the 18th Congressional District, the University of Texas, Texas A&M, and others around that state, and young people who are attempting to achieve the American dream, and individuals who are going back to school. Even though our GIs have the GI Bill, some who are extending their degrees and have had to take out loans. So I rise today to join you and my good friend from Chicago to indicate that I'm going to join the Army, if you will, the band of members who truly believe that there is no divide amongst us, Republicans and Democrats, when it comes to educating our children. Many of us are parents. Many of us have seen our children go through college, some having finished, some still in college, some with young children coming into college. And although we are blessed, many will have to take out loans for higher education. Doctors and lawyers who we wish for higher education will have to secure those loans. I don't want to be in the midst of a ticking time bomb. I don't want to be the barrier. I want to be the firewall that protects them and allows them to gain an opportunity in this world. So let me just thank you for allowing me to be on the floor this evening to indicate to my colleagues, we speak quietly and softly tonight because we're asking you to join us. My Republican friends, take the lead and join us so that in a few days, not 67 days, let's finish this up. Let's give them a graduation present. Let's tell every student coming out of high school and every college student that's in college that we are going to be your firewall, give you an opportunity for success in this great country that has always been the country that people have either come to or people have been proud to be in because of the great opportunity to be what you are achieving or seeking to be. I yield back to the gentleman.
Thank you, Congresswoman Lee. And again, just to follow up one quick point, which is that there is legislation that is now pending in the House, H.R. 3826. A few minutes ago, we got our 146th co-sponsor. To this date, though, we are still waiting for any members on the majority side to join us in this effort. And again, 77 of them voted in 2007 to support this measure to cut the interest rates. It's time. It's time for them to listen to what their presumptive nominee is saying. It's time to join the members on this side of the aisle and prevent really the damage that this would do to middle-class families. And no one knows that issue better than a member of the Education and Workforce Committee who's, again, done great work in terms of education issues and higher education affordability. Congressman Davis, thank you for joining us here this evening.
Well, thank you very much, Representative Courtney, and I want to not only thank you, but I want to commend you for the tremendous leadership that you've displayed on so many issues as I've watched you since you've become a member of this House. But I also want to thank you for taking on this issue, the issue of trying to assure that young people, especially in our country, a country that has been dubbed the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And it got to be that way because of its emphasis on education and providing opportunity for individuals to begin in life anywhere in this country and move as a result of education to the highest ranks, to the highest levels, to the ability to make valuable contributions not only to the development of their own lives, but to the lives of others. I often think of things that people have said about education, and something that I'm told that Abraham Lincoln once said is that education makes a man easy to lead, but difficult to drive, easy to govern, but impossible to enslave. College access and successes are fundamental stepping stones towards economic security and global competitiveness. As policymakers, it is imperative that we support students in making college affordable so that our citizens can prosper. We face an immediate crisis in college cost, and without congressional action, interest rates will get out of the box. I'm very fortunate to represent a congressional district that has what we call an education mecca in terms of the numbers of institutions that we have in what we call the South Loop area of Chicago, which is only a few blocks long and a few blocks wide. We have more than 100,000 students just in that area at colleges and universities like Loyola, DePaul, Spertus College, East-West University. As a matter of fact, I was at the board meeting of East-West last evening, where we were reviewing our accreditation standards and making sure that everything was in order so that the thousands of students who attend that university could get the very best. But unless we make sure that students can acquire the money, I've organized a little scholarship fund in honor of my parents because they believed so much in education. Two of the smartest people I've ever known. My father finished the 4th grade, and he was 19 years old. We saw his report card. But he was a great reader, and he read everything that he could get his hands on. My mother was a little more fortunate than that. She finished 8th grade and was considered to be one of the more educated people in our community. but they pushed for education. They knew that if their children were going to have opportunities that they did not have, that they had to get as much education as they possibly could. And so when interest rates bar and prevent people, I just know so many students and so many families who are wondering if they're going to be able to make it. Last year I had one family who called to ask if we could help them find the money just to get to school. I mean, they had done all of the other things that their daughter needed to do, but they came up short with transportation resources, and they were trying to keep from borrowing any additional money. And then once you get out of school, if your debt is so high when you go to try and find a job that it staggers you and pushes you back and works against your will, then it becomes even more difficult. So trying to make education affordable, just trying to give people the chance, the opportunity. Something I remember that a fellow named Wolf said, to every man his chance, his golden opportunity to become whatever his manhood, talent, ambitions, and hard work combines to make him. That is the promise of America. And of course, if he was saying that today, he wouldn't have just said every man. He would have said every person, every woman, everybody, every citizen, everybody who want to should have that opportunity. So again, I commend you for your leadership. I commend you for your tenacity. And I just like the way you work. I like what you do. I like the issues that you raise. And you mentioned the Pell grants. Senator Pell, from the same area of the country that you come from, his daughter was in my office not very long ago saying that she and a group of her friends were going to get very active on the whole issue of trying to make sure that individuals who were incarcerated had an opportunity to pursue the Pell Grant in honor of her father and remembering the great work that he did. So I remember you for the great work that you're doing. I thank you, and I'm pleased to join with you this evening.
Great. Well, that is high praise from you, Congressman Davis, who, when I was a freshman, brand new to the Capitol, the Education and Labor Committee, which you've been serving on for a number of years, it was a great honor to really observe you and to see that the College Cost Reduction Act was one of the first things that came out of the chute in January of 2007. And again, your words tonight show that this has been a lifelong priority and mission for you to make sure that that happens. You mentioned Abraham Lincoln from your great state of Illinois. You know, it's interesting to note that the college land grant system, the Morrill Act, was actually passed in 1862 in the middle of the Civil War. I mean, the most catastrophic threat to our country's existence ever, and yet we had a president from your great state who had the vision to understand that every state should have a land-grant college, which is what that bill did, and created a national commitment to higher education. Again, it was committed to agricultural sciences and mechanical engineering. What an amazing story about somebody who, I mean, gosh knows he could have been distracted with, whatever was happening in that terrible conflict, and yet he still understood that we can never, ever, ever lose sight of the importance of investing in our people, and that's what's made our country great, and you know that better than anyone.
You're absolutely right, and I thank you again, because I went to one of those land-grant colleges. I, along with 7 of my brothers and sisters, and I can tell you that had they not existed, none of us ever probably would have gone to a college or university. And so thank you again as I
Good.
take my leave.
I look forward to working with you over the next few weeks on this issue. Now we're joined by a gentleman from the great state of Michigan, Congressman Hanson Clark, who is a relatively new member, but again has jumped right in on this issue, and really thank you for joining me here this evening.
You're very welcome, Representative Courtney, the gentleman from Connecticut, for raising this important issue, introducing this important bill, which I'm very honored to support. We've got to keep interest rates low on student loans. 3.4% is reasonable. I mean, the federal government shouldn't be in the business of trying to make money or extract money more from student loan borrowers. You know, the real problem with these interest rates is that if we allow them to go up, is that if a borrower for some reason can't make a payment because they're sick, because they get laid off, maybe they get a divorce, that the interest rate would then compound. The interest would apply on top of interest, and the loan principal will actually start growing as the student loan borrower's income drops. So it puts student loan borrowers in a position where it could take them decades, if ever, to pay off their loans if they're in financial hardship. And that's not right. And as the gentleman from Illinois said, these loans are to provide people with educational opportunities, to give them a chance to get a degree where otherwise they wouldn't have the money to be able to do so. But you know, instead, Representative Courtney, instead of these loans providing borrowers with a chance of experiencing the American dream, the debt burden is so high on many of our graduates right now that the student loan debt is actually turned into a national nightmare. As you mentioned, over $1 trillion of debt owed by student loan borrowers. And these aren't just the graduates. They're parents that are also borrow money, take out student loans to help fund the education of their kids so their kids can have a better life. I've introduced a bill, H.R. 4170, to complement your efforts. It's the Student Loan Forgiveness Act of 2012. And in that bill, I adopt your position on keeping the interest rates on student loans, federal student loans, at 3.4%. And then I also want to make student loan repayment fairer and simpler by allowing every student loan borrower to get a second chance. Yes, you may have fallen behind on your payments, you may even be in default, but I want you to have a second chance to pay off your loans and to continue your education. So under my bill, every student loan borrower who's currently in repayment right now or has already taken out a loan will be able to repay that loan based on their income. 10% of their discretionary income. They make those payments for 10 years. They'll be eligible to have the balance of their student loans, if there's anything outstanding, to be forgiven. But if you pay 10% of your discretionary income for 10 years, more than likely you'll pay off a substantial amount of your loans, if not the entire loan balance. But for those who have had to borrow a lot of money because you decided to get a graduate education, or maybe you came from a family that didn't have much money, so your only chance to get an education was to borrow student loans, you won't be saddled with those loans for decades. You'll be able to pay them off over 10 years, which is the standard term for student loan repayment. One thing I'd like to add, though, about the bill is this, is that forgiving the balance of these student loans, it's not just to help the borrower. You see, it's also to help our country. Cutting student loan debt, keeping the interest rates down, forgiving student loans that pose an excessive burden on Americans, that's the most effective, one of the most effective ways to stimulate our economy, to create jobs. Think about it. A student loan borrower, instead of having to pay hundreds of dollars a month, maybe even $1,000 a month, that after they've paid it according to their income, according to their means for 10 years, to have the balance of that forgiven, so now they have this money available to use as they choose it, to invest, to start their own business. And you know, think about it. Our graduates, those are the ones that were disciplined enough to go to school. They were ambitious enough to set their sights on a goal and achieve it. Those are precisely the folks that we want to encourage to go into business, because it's through private business, free enterprise, that we really create jobs in a sustainable way in this country. Let's free up people's money so they can start their own businesses and realize the American dream, not just for themselves, but for everyone else. You know, I'm from the city of Detroit. We've always been a tough place, but we've had great entrepreneurs who risked everything, like Henry Ford, to create and expand the automobile industry in this country, which created jobs for millions of Americans for generations. We have so many young people right now who are ready to work, ready to start their own business, but they're not going to take any risk like that because they're too much in debt. They won't even buy a house because they can't afford it. Many student loan borrowers even postpone probably the most precious thing that anyone could get involved in, our great institution of marriage. They put that off. So the student loan debt, it's not only a burden on the borrowers, on the parents, it's costing our society jobs, economic growth, and we're costing the global market the opportunity to be benefited by the great products that our country could produce, the great services that we could provide, the great technology that we could develop and create and sell it globally. We're depriving the world of that because many of our budding entrepreneurs can't take the risk of starting their own business because they're in the hock with student loan debt, which is outrageous. So I want to thank you again for your leadership, for your persistent leadership on keeping student loan interest rates down at a reasonable level. As you can see, everyone around the country, including members of the other party, they understand the common sense notion of that. See, these loans, again, essentially I'm talking to American people so they understand this. These loans that the government provides you, it's not just for your benefit. It's to make our country stronger. It's the reason why we had the GI Bill after World War II. The more educated, the more trained, the more that we're able to develop our skills to our fullest potential, we're able to do more for ourselves and our community and for our country. See, that's what America's all about. You know, the reason why this is such a big deal for me is that my dad immigrated to this country during the midst of the Great Depression. Midst of the Great Depression, the roughest time economically for this country, because he saw America as a land of opportunity. My mother, who was African American, had to struggle for years under discrimination and segregation in Detroit in the 30s and the 40s and 50s. And she was a school crossing guard and a cleaning lady who saved up all of her money so I could get a chance to get an education. But after I dropped out of school and after my parents died, the only way I could return to college, I had to borrow student loans. I thank this country for having those loans available as an opportunity for me to get an education, to come here and to be able to effectively represent the people of this country. But you know what the problem is now, Representative, is that students who want to get the same education that I did decades ago, they may not be able to afford to do it. Even if they could borrow the money, they can't afford the cost that they'll have to endure trying to pay off that debt year after year, decade after decade. That's not right. The federal government shouldn't have that kind of power to oppress people, robbing them of their money, because it's our money that we're using to pay off these loans, but robbing us of our job and economic potential. So again, thank you again for your leadership. I'm very honored to join you in your endeavor to make student loan financing fairer for our country, but also to let you know my bill, H.R. 4170, the Student Loan Forgiveness Act, I offer it to complement your efforts to provide equal opportunity for education for all of us here in this country. Thank you so much. And I yield back my time.
Thank you, Congressman Clark, and thank you for sharing your personal story. What's been sort of extraordinary to me is that over the last few months, as we've been working on H.R. 3826,